I love listening to Blake tell that story. We've got Blake's wife, Brittany. We filmed her telling her version of that story too, and it's pretty amazing. We're going to post that on our website later today, so you'll be able to watch her talking about the move down here and experiencing a house fire. And losing Kroger, which is a person from up north, was devastating to me too, just to be completely honest and transparent. And lots of other stuff that kind of happened, but how community made a difference in her life too. And so that'll be posted on our website later today. I am so excited. This is like my sandbox. And what I mean by that is like this is my happy place to talk about community and connection. And so over the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk all about how I think, and I'm going to try to prove to you how I think that God built us for relationship, that you were stitched together. From the moment you were a being, you were stitched together to be in relationship. And that God speaks best to you when you're connected. And this whole thing about us wondering, like, how can we make life better, or can life be better, or what might look like if life was more than what it is right now. I think all of that stuff you're looking for is found when you're connected. Life really is better connected. And so I'm excited to talk to you all about this stuff. I told the staff, it's like, I'm going to limit myself. I'm going to keep myself really kind of steady and focused. So I'm going to do that for you. I won't preach more than 3 hours today. So we'll keep it short. Now, I promise to have you out of here in 30 minutes from now, okay, if y'all just listen to what I'm about to say. So from the very beginning of this church, okay, and I've only been here for 2 years, but way back, we are about to celebrate, by the way, our 25th anniversary as a church in January. January 21st, actually, will be our 25th anniversary as a community, which is just amazing. We're really excited about it. I've been just a small part of of that in the last 2 years, been able to be here and be a part of what's going on. But from the foundation, the DNA of this church, the whole idea and what I've really tried to bring back in this time that I've been here is that we wanted to build a community, okay? We wanted to build a community of Jesus followers who were in community with one another. And look, by a Jesus follower, let me make sure, for those of you that maybe didn't grow up in church like I do, I want to make sure you understand what I mean. Some of us think when you hear the word Jesus follower, that means like sold out, believe, like a theological expert, you got everything down and you understand the Bible backwards and frontwards, you can quote scripture and all that. That's not what I mean. A Jesus follower is really just anybody who's willing to take the teachings of Jesus seriously and put them into practice. And if that's you, right, that's what a Jesus follower is. It's someone who's willing to go, I think that this thing that Jesus was talking about in the gospel, I think he's onto something. I think there's some application for my life, and I'm going to be moving in his direction. So all we really wanted to do, this is the centerpiece of the DNA of our church. We just wanted to build a community of Jesus followers who were in community with one another, that they were one anothering, okay? And yes, I made up that word, and I don't care. You can use it. We're going to add it to the dictionary. If I ever get enough money, I'll make sure it happens. But we're one anothering together. And our one anothering has kind of a central statement, and this is the one we put on the posters. This is the one you've heard me say a dozen times, and we mean this, and it's that circles are better than rows. Circles are better than rows. Now, listen, I make my living talking to people in rows, okay? I love rows, and I think our rows here at TCAT are some of the best in town, okay? We put a lot of energy into our rows, but as much as our rows are amazing, circles are better. Circles are better. And here's why I think that, because there's things that happen when you're in a circle. There's discussion that can happen. I say something crazy up here, and you can sit in a circle with people and go, what on earth was Drew talking about today? Or, I didn't understand this piece, let me break it down. There's discussion and energy and transformation that can happen in a circle that can't happen in a row. Now, you could try, but like if you're talking in the middle of the message or whatever, people are going to like look at you weird. It might be kind of awkward, right? The best place to do that is in a circle. And here's the thing, we built this whole place around this idea. We have built this entire place around the idea that circles are better than rows. Today is Promotion Sunday within our TCAT Kids and TCAT Kids Junior environments. My 5-year-old walked into TCAT Kids from her preschool environment for the first time today. I shed a tear, not going to lie. Such a big deal. But like what I love is, for all my children that are on the other side of this wall, and all of your kids, if you're parents, you got kids, grandkids on the other side of this wall, one of the things you need to know is that we've built an entire environment. It revamped it over the past 2 years, completely flipped it on its head and transformed it into a place where every single week your children are sitting in a circle with someone who is telling them things that they need to hear. They're sitting in a circle with other people their age, and they're hearing the stories, and they are learning. An entire new generation of people are learning that the hope of the world is the church. And look, here's the thing. Like, if you didn't grow up in a place like I'm going to say something, and I don't want you to be offended by this, and you're going to think it's funny and I'm making a joke, but I'm sincerely serious about this, okay? Don't take your children to a church that teaches them to hate church. Okay, please don't do that. And that's for the people listening to the sound of my voice who don't go to our church. That's the people who are sitting here. That's the people who are like cynical about church. Don't take your children to a church that teaches them to hate church, because when they're grown up, they will put into practice what that church taught them. Even if it's the place where all your friends go, even if it's like, I'm comfortable here, even if it's like the denomination you've always gone to, don't take your children to a place that teaches them to hate church, because they'll grow up hating church. And if you grew up in a place kind of like me as a kid where you were at church all the time and it kind of taught you to hate church, you can jump on mission with us and volunteer here at this place as we teach an entire new generation of kids in circles that the church is the hope of the world. And that happens every single Sunday here at this church. Students, our middle schoolers and our high schoolers, one of the things that I love so much about what Andrew has done in the revamping our student ministry, you should know this. Last Sunday, we had the highest attendance in our student groups that we have had at this church in 5 years. The 5-year mark. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely incredible. What Andrew's doing is building a community of students, middle schoolers and high schoolers, who are sitting in a circle with many small group leaders who are sitting in this room, and they're learning how to put in practice their faith. They are learning what it looks like to live and own their own faith as a middle schooler, as a high schooler. As a parent, I cannot stress this enough. Get your kids in a circle and get them there every week, because, look, here's the thing that we want to do. If you're a parent, we want to partner with you. We literally want to partner with you in helping you raise your kids, and we're absolutely free. Right? We don't charge you anything. We don't take your tax dollars. There's no dues. There's no preschool sign-up application. We're absolutely free. It's not free. So those of you all that are giving every single week are supporting it. But look, we do this because we want to partner with you so that the next generation understands the value of a relationship with Jesus. So that the next generation understands that we really feel like the hope of the world is the church. And the church may have had a bum rap over the past 10 years. We are trying to change the perspective and change the relationship that people have with church right here in this place. Every single week, week in and week out, your students, your children, your preschoolers are getting connected in a circle with people who care about them, who aren't you, and love them enough to tell them what they need to hear. Now, here's the thing. Circles are not just a kid thing. Circles are not just a student thing. As important and as valuable as we've made it and how we've rebuilt all of our environments around them here for our families, circles are just a thing. And in fact, if you're a parent, for you parents, one more thing that I got to move on. The best thing you can do is get yourself in a circle to model that to your kids. Get your kids in a circle, get them there every week, and get yourself in a circle so that they will learn the value of relationship just like you will. But circles are just a thing. What we understand is that all of us are built with this need, this desire for relationship. And I think it's scriptural. I think it's in our DNA as people who've been created by God. King Solomon, who we've talked about a lot over the past couple weeks, actually wrote about this. And one of the interesting things that he brings up is how these relationships seem to affect us and what they seem to do. Now, one more thing, and then I'm going to read you the scripture. If you're sitting in here and you're doing what I normally do, which is thinking like you're incredibly busy and there's so many things that are going on in your life, you just don't have time for a circle, everybody in your circle will be just as busy as you, I promise, because that's just the way life works. And so those of us that we've decided that circles are the place where life is going to change for us, where community is valuable to us, and we just decided that amongst all the other crazy, we're going to carve out time to make this happen. What I'm about to read to you has been played out in our lives. And I hope it gets played out in your life too. So this is from Ecclesiastes chapter 4. It's a book in the Old Testament. This is a foundational kind of idea that came from a long time ago from a king thousands of years ago, but he understood it. And so here we go. This is what he had to say. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for the labor. And essentially, this just means like if you're mowing your grass, make sure there's somebody else helping you because, double it down. Unless you're like me and it's your teenage son who you have to like constantly point out everything he misses. Anybody have to do that? Any other dads? I'm picky. Anyway, no, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. And then here's the thing. This is where it starts getting really deep and really important. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. If one falls down, one can help the other one up. Have you ever seen anybody fall? Financially, fall relationally, fall in their career, fall morally, fall and not have anybody to help pick them up? Have you ever seen that before? Maybe it's been you, where you've fallen. Something hard happened, loss happened, life happened, difficulty happened, and you found yourself in a place where like, I'm down and I don't know what to do, and you didn't have anybody to pick you up. There was not like anybody but maybe family who was in your life to go, hey, we've got your back. Have you ever seen that happen before, right? Well, that's not a good thing. And, here this is great, and Solomon says, but, right? But pity anyone who falls and has no one. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. If you're in a place where like life happens and difficulty happens and hardships, come your way, and you don't have somebody that's kind of got your back, life can be really difficult. One of the hardest things, this is one of the hardest things for me as a pastor, is all the phone calls we get from people who, their life happened and difficulty happened and they've experienced loss, or they've done something bad, they've done something dumb that they regret. They've blown up their marriage, they've blown up their relationship, they've blown up their GPA or whatever. And they call, and one of the first things we end up saying is like, well, are you in a small group, right? Who are your people? And I kind of put it another way. I say it like this. Who feels free to ask, are you okay, and won't accept I'm fine as an answer? Who do you have in your life, right? Who do you have in your life that feels free to say, are you okay, and won't accept I'm fine as an answer? I've said it another way to our elders before when someone calls and they tell me a story of someone who's had a really bad problem, and I go, well, who in their life have they given authority to speak truth to them? Who in their life have they given authority to speak truth to them? Who do they have in their life that's willing to go, you know what, I know, I know what's going through, and I see this, and I need to tell you something because I love you too much to see you go down this path. Who is it that they've put in their life that won't accept I'm fine as an answer? And the problem is, here's the thing, post-pandemic, we figured this out really, really in the hard way. But a lot of us don't have anybody in our life that we've given permission to do this, except maybe a spouse. And look, don't get me wrong, I love having conversations with my wife, but the truth of the matter is we need people in our lives who know us. Because if the thing that we're hiding is about a relationship problem we don't have anybody to talk to. You don't have anybody to lay that out with. You don't have anybody to ask you the truth. And if you don't have people in your life that you've given permission to ask how you really are and tell the truth about yourself, it's a very lonely world. It's a very lonely world. Now, beyond that, there's actually something else that's going on, and Solomon picks this out next. He says this, though one may be overpowered. This word overpowered can actually mean another one in our kind of common vernacular, and it's overwhelmed. Anybody, don't raise your hand. I almost said raise your hand. How many of you have felt overwhelmed lately, right? Though one may be overwhelmed, two can defend themselves, right? And a cord of three strands is not quickly broken. I've been in a ton of small groups over my time. In fact, before I even became a pastor, one of the very first things that I did was grab a bunch of people together and make them our small group. There were couples that we went to college with that Shannon and I grabbed together, and they were our people, and we met every single week to talk and to pray and to think, right? And so I became a small group leader before I became a pastor, just so you know what my pathway was in that. I became a small group participant before I became a pastor and a leader in the church. And so I truly value and truly believe in the problem and the value of community, because it's a place where I could take my problems, where I could be honest, right? And so to have what I've experienced in all those things is that when people come in and they're brokenhearted, people who are brokenhearted who have community don't stay broken long. It doesn't mean that their heart's not broken. It means that there's something in the midst of community that happens that helps them realize they're not left broken. They're not left broken. They have people. Who are your people? That's again why I say circles are better than rows. And I love rows. Like I said, I make my living talking to rows. We take up the offering in rows. It's great, right? We have all this time. We can talk about theology in rows. But circles are better. They're just better. They're so much better. Now, here's the other thing. All this stuff that's happening is really great, right? And having community when things go wrong is super important. But did you know group life is preventative? I want you to think about this for a minute. So currently there are, in an essence-ish, 60-ish kids on the other side of this wall. 50 to 60-ish kids. I don't see the attendance, but that's usually where we're at, on the other side of this wall. I want to ask you a question, right? How many of them will grow up and decide not to drop out of high school because of a relationship they have with a small group leader? How many of them will not drink and drive because of the relationship they have with a small group leader that's here? How many of them will decide that they're going to own their faith when they grow up and they're not going to have the falling away mess that many of us had when we left off for college because of a relationship they have with a small group leader? Now, we can't quantify that, but we don't know because it's preventative. It's the same thing that happens with so many other preventative things we do in our lives. When we invest in it and we build time into it, we value it, it actually prevents us from getting in a mess later. And your challenge or the opportunity that you have to get in a group could be preventative for you too, because group life is preventative because somebody can see what you can't see. Somebody can see what you can't see. In other words, somebody knows it's coming, right? They can see it coming. Somebody can see it coming when you can't. How many of us, as married couples, just those of you that are married in here for a minute, have looked at another couple's life? Maybe they just got married and you've been married a while, and you see the way that she talks down to her husband, or you see that he puts down his wife, and you see how they talk about each other, and you're like on the background and you can see it coming. You know what I'm talking about? Like you can just see the problem and the struggle coming and they can't see it. Or how many of you all, again, with friends that they're making really bad choices, are going to lead them down a path they don't want to go, and they just can't see it, but you can. Somebody can see it coming, and it's not you. And this applies to everybody, okay? So singles, if I could just say this for a minute for those of you that are single, okay? And I want you to know I'm for you. I'm 100% for you. Single life is one of the complicated things that exists in the world right now, especially with all the pressure and all the stuff that's going on. And just to be honest, that there's pressure just as much from the church as there is from the world. And it's a tough place to kind of figure out, okay? But singles, here's the thing. I want to tell you something that all of us married people know that you don't know yet. There is no such thing as a married problem, okay? Marriage problems are easy. What actually is happening is that single people with problems get together, and then those problems get amplified. And the thing about being single is it's amazing, right? You don't like the roommate you got, you just change it out. You do whatever you want. You don't like where you live, you move someplace else. You don't like the school, you go someplace else. But the truth is, when we're single, okay, there are things that are broken in us that we can't see and we're not working on, and you won't work on until you're married. And so for the many of us that got married with that same thing in mind and had those same issues, we would love to be able to go back and be where you are and connect ourselves in a singles ministry, a singles group, a circle of people to be able to work through some of the stuff that's in us and through us, so that by the time we got married, those problems wouldn't exist anymore. We'd worked through them. There are so many of us as married people that would love to go back and go, you know what? I know that what I've brought, the baggage that I've brought into this relationship was actually keeping me from getting married in the first place. And I didn't deal with it. And now here I am. Now, again, married people don't nod and say amen or moo or whatever it is that we do yet. So hold on with me, okay? But the thing is, there are things that you as singles can't see about yourself that other people can see. They can see them. But they're actually preventing you from getting where you want to go. Single guys, okay, let me just point something out for you for a minute, okay? Single guys, what is this picture? You ever seen this? I want to point something out for you. This, okay? Have you ever seen one of these before? Many of us as single guys, you don't live with mama anymore. She doesn't make you brush your teeth anymore, and so you just walk around with perpetual bad breath. Who's going to tell you that, right? If not me from the stage, right? This is why we can't get dates, okay? Single guys, brush your teeth. Single ladies, I know better than to put an image up there and pick on you all, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, I just want your attention, okay? This is serious, okay? For single people, I'm so for you. There are things that are happening in your life that you can't see, and you need people in your life pointing you in the right direction. This is why we value our college ministry so much. That's why I'm so grateful for Jay and Jackie, for not only what they do on Sunday afternoons and the lunches, but the circles that they build and the studies that they build and the community that they build and the driving to dorms and all the stuff that they do, because you need people who can see what you can't see. Now, it's not just for singles, okay? Well, first, let me just do this. Married people, if like 60% of what I've just been saying over the past 5 minutes is true, would you just like make a noise or clap or just like, point out, tell our single people, okay, thank you. Thank you. See, I'm for you. I promise. We are for you, right? Now, again, it's not just about singles. Married couples, okay? Married couples, there's so many things that you can benefit from in a circle. There's so much to value in a circle that can help you as married people. And again, I'm thinking about early on in our marriage. Let me just give you the slingshot that my wife went through, okay? I started off in civil engineering school, top of my class, planning to plant my own firm and make tons and tons of money. That was, my wife and I got engaged while I was in engineering school, right? Prepping for my first co-op. By the time she said yes, about 3 weeks later, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be a pastor. That whole money thing is going to be completely different. You're going to have to work, and I'm going to have to go to seminary. Okay, that was the whiplash that happened very early on. And then fast forward just a couple of years, and both of our dads passed away, like almost immediately after all this happened. We both got married, and then within a year, both of our dads had passed. And we moved into this little terrible parsonage from a house. We bought our own home and got it where we wanted. Sold it so we'd have enough money to move to my first church. We're living in this like moldy little crusty parsonage in the middle of nowhere. And so like it was bad. It was the roughest time in our marriage. It was the roughest time for us financially. We just had Caden, so I would just become a dad. There were a million things that were changing in our life. But guess what? I had community. We had community. And in fact, like I was going to a counselor. Sometimes my wife would just go, you need to go talk to your counselor. I'm not dealing with you. But most of the time in those moments we said, we're calling our people. And we'd call a small group, and we'd drive to Lexington, or we'd drive to Louisville, or wherever those people were, and we'd get our people in a circle, and they just let me talk, and I would vent, right? And sometimes they'd say, can you step out so we can pray for your wife? Because, like, dang, man. I was angry, I was upset, I was frustrated. There was so many bad things happening in my life at that time, and I was blaming God for all of them. But I had people. And in our marriage became stronger. And I think today, the reason we have the good marriage that we have today is because we had people in our camp, people on our team that were willing to listen to us and keep us from going down that road. Let me put this to you a different way, okay? Every marriage needs some support now to avoid the need for life support later. Every marriage needs some support now to avoid the need for life support later. Group life is preventative. It's preventative. Group life is preventative, but here's the thing that's really important for you to understand. It's kind of like a retirement account. And if you don't invest in it now, it won't be there when you need it. If you don't invest in community now and make the value of it valuable and intentional in your life now, it won't be there when you need it. Again, the phone calls that break my heart are the people that call in, and they call in every week we get a phone call from somebody, and they've experienced loss, their marriage is blown up, they've lost their job, there's something terrible is happening, and well, look, we're there, okay? Your church, all right, will show up with care and compassion as soon as humanly possible. But the truth is, and this is what breaks my heart, the truth is the people who call, they don't need care and compassion, they need community. They need people. And they didn't spend the time to invest in that. They didn't spend the time to say, you know what, I'm just going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out. This is way too important. For all of the messes that I went through early on in our marriage for my wife and I, the reason we got through is they were already there when we needed them. They were already there, so they were already there for us. They were already there. So we built the relationships even before we needed them. We built this time to circle up and read and try to figure out what God was saying to us and to have people who would listen to us cry and be angry and bitter and be completely transparent and love us anyway. And in every small group that I've been in, I've found people like that. The small group that I'm in right now, I wouldn't trade that time for the world. And what I love is, when my kids will come up and they'll say like, well, I got called and I can go to a friend's house tonight, or I can go, can you take me and such to go do something? And my wife will go, no, tonight is small group night and we're going to small group. Sorry, you're coming with us, The value of that in our life, in our marriage, has been played out because we have seen it time and time again that when we needed community, it was there, and we'd invested in it. And so when somebody comes, this is our big room, and by the time the college students get back and we get past this weekend of like last weekend before school, there'll be 250 of you all sitting in this room in a couple weeks. And I don't know all of you. I wish I did, right? But I don't know all of you the way that I wish that I could. But somebody does, right? And so every once in a while somebody will come up and go, I came to your church 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm always kind and gracious, but the truth is, you came to a worship service. Our church happens in the circles on the other side of this wall. Our church happens in the circles that are happening in student groups on Sunday nights. Our church happens in your homes, right? It happens in your homes every week, week in and week out, when you're allowing people to come in. That's really what the church is. It's a community of people in community. And again, I love Rose, okay? I love it. But if I were to ask anything of you, it would be to get in a circle, because circles are better than rows. Circles are better than rows. Let me ask you a question and I'm done, okay? This is the point. When I think about this for myself, And the reason I value it and the reason I'm making it such a priority for me as a parent, such a priority as a husband, is because that didn't actually happen when I was a kid. And I want to ask you something. What might have happened? Think about your story for just a minute. What might your story be like if your mom, your dad, your older brother, your older sister, what if they had had community when you were a kid? What if they had had people when you were a kid? What might your life be like now? What might the things you're going through now be like if your parents had had community? And here's the thing, for those of us that are parents, why wouldn't we want to give that gift to the next generation? Why wouldn't we want to give that gift to our kids? If we realize how valuable a circle can be for us now, why wouldn't we jump in it now, pattern it for our kids later, give them their own circle, and make sure that as we work on ourselves, we are actually becoming better people and better parents and better husbands and better fathers and better moms and better mothers. Why wouldn't we want to do that? See, I am convinced that God reveals himself best in relationship. And if you find yourself in a place where you're like, I don't know that God's spoken to me, and I don't know that God knows I'm around, I think you need a circle. You need a circle of people. And look, in our small group, I'm completely honest, our small group, we study, we have a book that we read, we pray together, we talk about scripture together. But my favorite pieces, and look, this is bad, the preacher's saying this out loud, my favorite pieces are the moments where it's like two of us in conversation in the corner. Or, driving with one of our small group leaders to take them to Mobile because their daughter's moving, right? It's the relational things where I know I have people in my camp who love me in spite of me, and they love me too much to lie to me. They love me too much to lie to me, and everybody needs that. So again, why wouldn't you want to jump in a small group? Why wouldn't you want to jump in a circle? All of the excuses that we can make, I've heard them before. All of the things, you're busy, I get it. You are incredibly busy. We are the busiest generation of people in the history of people, okay? But everybody who would be in your would-be circle is just as busy as you are right now. And if they can find the time to value it and say, I want to make it work, then you can too. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to pray, and we're done. There's no closing song. There's no emotional, grab your heart, make you do something. Completely transparent, completely open. I want you to pull your phones out in just a second. I want you to pull your phones out. I want you to go to tcat.church/groups, and I want you to fill out the form that's on there saying that you want to join a small group. If you will do that, right, if you're going to make the commitment to do that, on August the 21st, we're going to have group launch here at the church, and we're going to help you meet your new community and get you started off right. We'll give you everything you need to succeed, but you have to make the commitment. You have to go, I'm going to make time for this. So go to tcat.church/groups, fill out the form, and one of our coaches from our groups team will reach out to you and help you find community. And that's whether you're single, whether you're in college, whether you're married, whether you're looking for a men's group, a women's group. And let me say one more thing, okay? Some of you in this room are completely capable of leading a small group, and you're denying your talents from people who could be in your circle. You are. There's plenty of people in this room who could lead a small group. Fill that out on the form too. If you're like, I think it's time for me to jump in, I could do this, I could facilitate conversation. All you got to do is create the environment where God can work. All the rest of the work is up to God. Would you do that? Would you make that commitment? So I want you to do that now. Pull out your phone. I'm going to tell you one more small group story as you pull out your phones and fill out that form, and then we're done, and I'll pray, and you can go home, okay? My favorite experience in small group has really been the way recently, my most recent small group, the way we as parents and families have been able to separate time for us and our kids. Our kids are having small group upstairs while we're having adult time and circle downstairs. And so they get circles here on Sunday morning, but they get circles on Mondays too, because that's when our small group meets. And sometimes they're a little rambunctious, and sometimes they're crazy, but they're all begging to go to school with each other, and they're begging to be in the same class. We had someone who came to provide childcare not long ago who said that there's 15 kids in our group, and 5 of them are mine. 5 of them are my one child, Carson. Carson counts as 5, I guess. And so they're a little bit rambunctious sometimes, but it's beautiful because we, as parents, we have we pass the hat, get childcare, that kind of thing, but we can carve out the time and teach our kids, look, I know you're going to be upstairs and we're going to give you something fun, but I want you to see that we value this and that our relationships with each other and our relationship with God have gotten so much better because we've decided to do this. And every week I get an opportunity, not from the stage, okay, because I'm the pastor and that's, they think it's my job, but every week I get an opportunity to sit in a circle and go, I'm just a guy sitting in a circle. I'm just your dad. I'm just your husband. And I get a chance to sit here and grow and work on myself just like everybody else. And I love the fact that my kids are getting that model. I can't wait to see how that actually carries out in their life going forward, and I think you'll love it too. So let me pray for you, and then we're going to close out our time together and get out of here, okay? So bow your heads with me. Father God, I just want to thank you so much for the community and the way we're valuing relationship here at TCAT. God, I feel in my heart, in the depths of my soul, that we're doing this because this is the way you've built us, that we're built for community, that we need people in our circles. We need people in our camp. Over these next couple weeks, as we all kind of wrestle with, should we get in a small group? Can we make time for it? Will this work? Does it fit the schedule? All those things. Would you just make it abundantly clear that we can't not do this, that it's like our retirement savings. If we don't invest in it now, we won't have it when we need it. All of us need people. All of us need circles. Some of us in this room are completely capable of leading a group, and we need to step up and do that. And all the rest of us, we just need to jump in a circle. God, I'm grateful for our kids' ministry, for our student ministry that is growing by leaps and bounds, because we are doing our best to create and invest in the next generation of people to help them see how much church is valued and to make them love church and to love you because of it. God, you are the hope of the world. You are the hope of our hearts. And we just pray that something that might have been said today will be received, and that we'll all feel that nudge, that bump to get in community. We ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you all so much for coming to TCAT today. We will see you next week for part 2. We're going to talk a lot more about relationships. So have a great week. I'll see you next week.